In a world of budget mice all the way down to $35 with incredible build quality in all the shapes that you can imagine, where Logitech, Vaxi, and Razer reign supreme over the esports scene, there's often this one brand we kind of forget about, at least in our enthusiast scene, and that's ZOWIE. As you might already know, I used to be a huge fan of the EC2B back in the days when I played a lot of CSGO. They have pretty much pioneered the definition of an esports mouse back then, and so many of the shapes that we have today actually originate from ZOWIE back in the days. But the question is, are these mice even worth it, or why is nobody talking about them? Whilst new releases like the NP01S Ergo, for example, went absolutely crazy over on Twitter, I have barely seen anybody talk about mice like the CA13DW, for example, let alone any of the new ZOWIE pads. So today we're gonna have a look at ZOWIE at the end of 2025 to see what they have to offer currently, and if they're worth your hard-earned money. But before we get into the video today, let's hear from our sponsor, Tipsy. Whether you're looking for an affordable, do-it-all V-shaped banger, or a super detailed and bright tuning to get the absolute edge on your opponents, Tipsy Audio got you covered with their all-new M1 and M3 lineup. Being in the IM industry for almost 10 years and having sold over 150,000 customized units, they've put all their knowledge and experience into their new universal models to give it that custom look and feel. Go get your new audio upgrade today with the link in the description down below, and make sure to use code JKU at checkout to save a whopping 10% off of your entire order. Alright, before we get into anything, I do want to thank ZOWIE for actually sending out the EC2DW and 2 of their latest mousepads. Rest assured, as always, all my opinions are my own, and I will not be holding back. First of all, let's get into the unboxing experience. Inside of the packaging, you get your mouse, this enhanced receiver that's actually pretty awesome. It has pogo pins here on the bottom so that you can just lay your mouse on top of it to charge your mouse whenever you're done with gaming. It actually works very well. The only complaint I have is that the port here on these receivers is so fucking tight, so you can only use their cable that comes with the packaging. Same also goes for their mice here in the front. The ports are very narrow. But yeah, besides that, you also get some black PTFE skates inside of the packaging. You also get a set of white PTFE skates that are a bit faster. You get a USB-C to USB-A adapter. Then you also get this USB dongle for on the go. And then you also get the awesome USB-A to USB-C cable that is not braided, which I actually do like. It is also definitely more flexible than most cables that you get these days, but I still wouldn't recommend gaming with it. The good thing about the dongle is that you can always just place your mouse on top of the receiver as soon as you're done gaming, so that you're sure to have a full battery next time you play. All of the DW series mice actually come with 4K polling support. Underneath all of the mice, you can switch between the enhanced receiver. The center position is for turning your mouse off, and the left position is for the USB-A receiver. You also have a DPI button to go through all DPI stages. You have a button for your polling rate, where you can go through 125 Hz, 500 Hz, 1K, 2K, and 4K. And if you want to know more about the keybinds on all of these ZOWIE mice, I'll leave a link down in the description below, because some of these settings are really annoying to find. Because ZOWIE does not have a web driver, and you need to adjust things like debounce time and liftoff distance with some weird key combinations that are really difficult to memorize. So feedback to ZOWIE here, please make a good web driver. I know you can, you definitely have the budget for it. Vaxi did a pretty good job. It's nothing phenomenal, but it definitely works. It's rather minimal, and I definitely think that BenQ ZOWIE can do a good job at that. The main difference that ZOWIE mice have compared to almost all other mice on the market are actually the main buttons. As you can see, the clicks aren't actually separated from the top shell. They're actually a part of it. They actually still use mechanical switches. So in combination together with that top shell where the clicks are a part of it, they actually feel rather spammable and not so tactile. I do definitely sometimes have some misclicks because these are very light to actuate compared to certain other mice in the market, especially something like the G Pro X Superlight, for example. But overall, I like them because they're different than most of the market, and having a light spammable switch is definitely something that a lot of people still do look for. Not everyone wants a heavy tactile switch, so at least ZOWIE actually provides that. Now getting into something that ZOWIE is very known for, the build quality. ZOWIE mice are pretty much like Nokia's. You could throw this thing at your wall and your wall would break. There is absolutely nothing you can get to flex here. It is rock fucking solid. I have zero creaking on all of my units, no matter if I purchase it myself or it got sent out. And what is pretty incredible because of their engineering and their top shell with the clicks being a part of it, is actually that there is no side-to-side movement whatsoever. These are the tightest tolerances I've seen on any mouse out there. You cannot get these mouse buttons to move side by side. There's absolutely no grinding, no nothing. But talking about buttons, we're definitely going to get deeper into that later in the video, and I will also make sure to do a sound test for you guys. Getting into the weight, this is the only thing that I personally do not love about ZOWIE. I don't mind it. Weight is very subjective. Not everyone wants a super light mouse. Some people do prefer 50 grams, 60 grams, or even up to 70 gram mice. And since a lot of pro players still prefer a bit of a higher weight, that is what ZOWIE caters to. So they're sitting at around 60 grams for most of their mice. The CA13DW series is actually around 66 grams. The FK2DW is around 65.5 grams. And my original U2 actually sits at around 61 grams. Me personally, I really do love mice around 40 to 45 grams. I play a lot of very fast-paced games, so games like Fortnite, Battlefield, Call of Duty. So in a game where I'm not sitting there holding corners and just doing crosshair placement, I do prefer a lighter weight, but yet again, I don't think it's an issue with your mice. And if you're somebody who likes mice at around 60 grams, well, it's perfect for you. Another thing that ZOWIE is really known for are their shapes. The CA13 is probably the best palm grip mouse out there on the market, or even if you just want a super high hump compared to pretty much any other mouse in the market. Here it is compared to a shape like the X2 Mini, for example. It's really one of the only options besides the Lamsu Inca, of course, which is incredibly similar since it's pretty much a clone. Then there's also the ergonomic mice from ZOWIE, which is the EC series. I have the EC2DW here, and I really do enjoy using it. It's a shape that I've seen countless times, and it's also been remastered from the actual inventor of the design, Sandra, over at Vaxi. There's also the S2DW, which is much more of a claw grip focused shape as well, which is also very popular in our community. Then there is the FK series. I have the FK2 here, which is super flat, and I actually really do enjoy using it because you have a very relaxed grip with it and you're very close to the mouse pad compared to many of their other mice. This I would, for example, really recommend for somebody playing a fingertip grip or a relaxed claw grip, or even an aggressive claw grip like mine. You can also pincer it, for example. And then there's the U2, which has also been absolutely shamelessly cloned by other companies, which is actually an asymmetric mouse, even though you would think it would be symmetrical. As you might be able to see here, the right side is very flat and safe, and over on the left side you actually have a huge thumb groove, which gives you a super locked in feeling. So if you play any tag FPS and you think the shape might be for you, I can definitely recommend it because it has a very wide hump and gives you a super locked in feel. Definitely check out my review on the U2 up here in the corner or down in the description below if you think you're interested in it. For me personally, this is just too much of a locked in feel. I like my mice to be maneuverable, and the only mouse in their lineup that actually makes me get a lot of maneuverability is the FK2. It's the one I've used the most from this lineup, and I really do enjoy it because it's so different from any other mouse on the market. We almost have no truly flat mice on the market. Compared to the Hitscan Hyperlight, for example, it makes you think that the Hitscan is just absolutely huge and bulbous, where the FK2 here on the left is just flat and long. It's also really not wide, and I really do like the shape of it. And if you're at all interested in any of these shapes, definitely go watch some reviews here on YouTube to get a better opinion of what they actually feel like in hand. Most of these shapes are almost as old as me, and it's kind of incredible that they're still around these days after being on the market for so long. In terms of these stock skates, they used to all come with these black Teflon skates, which are definitely a bit more on the slower side. As you can see, they're also super thin and don't have the most rounded edges. Same goes for their stock skates, which are actually also very thin and not really too rounded. They do have a rounding to them, but as you can see by all my mice, I switched to aftermarket skates for a reason. I can definitely recommend the UWS skates, which are the Unusual Way Sport skates. These are the Magic Eyes, which are their fastest skates. So far, they have definitely been holding up, and they have a tiny bit more thickness to them, so you might have to up your LOD. I definitely had to do that, but these feel super nice. If you want to know how to increase your liftoff distance on the mouse in order to accord for aftermarket skates that are a bit thicker, definitely check out the link in the description below, where you'll find a guide how to do that. I really do not fully hate their stock skates. The white ones are definitely a bit faster and don't feel as horrible as their old black Teflon skates that they used to have back in the days. I just personally prefer 100% PTFE, but for most people, I think these would be alright. The only thing with thinner stock skates is that if you press your mouse into the mouse pad itself, you might be able to touch the base of it if you have a softer pad. So you're actually grinding the base off your mouse on top of the mouse pad. That only really happens on X-Soft pads and people who put too much pressure into their mouse when aiming. But since most mice these days come with adhesion pad 100% PTFE skates, seeing a mouse come with these type of stock skates definitely kind of sucks. I mean, even Vaxi switched over to these skates. And they actually adjusted the depth of which these skates sit at and also the thickness of these skates so that they match with aftermarket ones, so that you don't have any issues with your LED not being the same anymore. In terms of buttons, we've already talked about the main buttons. They're definitely more on the spammable side, more on the light side. There's absolutely zero grinding, zero wobble, and they feel pretty nice. Tolerance-wise, they feel freaking perfect. Click-wise, I personally prefer a click that you can't click accidentally. One that is a tiny bit more tactile, a bit more crisp. These side buttons are all great. They're not too light, not too heavy. They actually also have a glossy coating, so they're a bit more grippy. I personally do not care. The scroll is still very, very ZOWIE-like. You will hear that in the sound test in a bit. It is not too heavy. The scroll click is not the lightest in the entire world, but it's passable for sure. And here's the sound test for you guys. In terms of the sensor position, most of them are actually pretty different. If you look at the center of the side buttons here, for example, over on the CA13DW series, it's a tiny bit rearwards. It's not perfectly in the center. The way that I would grip it with my 19x10 hands, for example, you can see that it's slightly below my thumb. As you can see over here on the EC2DW, the sensor is definitely below center. Even if you compare it to the center of the side buttons here, it's certainly below center. Over on the FK2DW series, if I aggressive claw it like this, you can see that it's pretty much centered. And if you compare it to the center of the side buttons, it's, yeah, pretty much in the center. And over on the U2, their latest shape, it's also pretty much centered. And the center of the side buttons is here so that you can see that the sensor is, yeah, pretty much in the center. And this type of philosophy I find a bit weird, especially coming from ZOWIE. I do suppose that they want to stay tried and true on how their sensor position was like all the way back on their older models, so that if a pro picks up the latest model, he's sure that his sensitivity will feel the exact same, because the higher your sensor is actually positioned, the faster your sensitivity will feel, because you don't swipe your mouse like this, you actually do this. So if your sensor is more towards the rear, it would actually pass a shorter distance, and if it's more towards the front, it will read a wider range of your mouse pad, which then results in your sensitivity feeling faster. So if you're looking into any of these mice, definitely do look at pictures underneath of the mice or look at other reviews and see what the sensor position is like, and if that's something that either annoys you, actually suits you well, or if you don't care about sensor position, well, just skip this part. In terms of battery life, these things last a long time. The pogo pins on the receiver are almost excessive because I almost never have to charge these things. They last a pretty darn long time. I can easily go on 2K and use it for like over a week straight, which is really nice. And in something like esports, where you could lose a game if you don't have enough battery, I guess this just makes sense. In terms of the software, well, there isn't any. If you want to change your liftoff distance, your debounce time, or anything really picky, you'd have to go into your manual, scroll around, see how you actually do those type of keybinds with some weird shortcuts, where you actually have to hold several buttons, have your mouse turned off, and then turn it on in order to swap it around. On one hand, I actually like it because the mouse itself is plug and play. You can just swap your DPI here, change your polling right there, and then just once in a lifetime change your debounce time and your liftoff distance and never think about it again. But since almost any other mouse in the market has a web driver these days, even something like the $35 MCHOS L7 Pro, which is absolutely a phenomenal budget mouse, ZOWIE does kind of look like they're cheaping out. But yeah, since even Vaxi has a web driver these days, I wouldn't be surprised if we see one from ZOWIE very soon. Before I get into my conclusion of ZOWIE at the end of 2025 as a whole, and whether you should get these or the clones of their shapes on the market, let's actually talk about their mouse pads for a sec. Their two most relevant mouse pads that you can see on their website are the SR3 and the SRSE2. The one I have on my desk is the blue SRSE2 here. It exists as both an H and a G. H stands for, I don't know, high, and that's their square pad, their 500 by 500 size. And the G in the name just stands for large, I think, for the 470 millimeters by 390. It's kind of a weird naming scheme. But yeah, ZOWIE finally has 500 by 500 mousepads. I do definitely enjoy the SRSE2, but I don't really feel that it's much different than the old models. I do think it's a bit more consistent and I can't feel it really taking up humidity that much. But then again, I live in an environment where I have at most 50% humidity. If you don't know what their pads feel like, their bases are very firm, super consistent. They have a lot more rebound than your average Poron or softer base material pad out there. The base is actually one of my favorite bases out there. And what's new in their pads is actually this dotted texture so that the pads don't slide around on your desk. Out of these two pads, I prefer the GSR3. It feels a lot more conventional and not as dye-subbed. It just feels like a pretty typical balanced mouse pad. It's not really super controlled or anything like that. I think it used to be a lot slower back then. But yeah, with 100% PTFE skates, this thing is pretty balanced, not super slow, nowhere near the Type 99 or something like that. And overall, a decent pad, but would I spend 60 euros on this? Yeah, probably not. But if you're looking for a base that's pretty firm, very consistent, and just want a conventional mouse pad with level to surface stitching and overall great quality, I can definitely recommend it. And for the SRSE2 over here, it has no stitching, so it will definitely fray over time. It has a similar base, which is also very firm and consistent. The surface feels very dye-subbed. It does feel pretty smooth, there's no real texture to it. And compared to the GSR3, I actually feel like it's a bit slower, especially when you press into the pad, you can feel it getting a lot slower. But if you don't put any pressure into the pad, it's actually more of a balance control type of surface. It's just another SRSE. They all pretty much feel the same in terms of surface feel. And if you used to really like it and you see this and would like it in a square size, well, go ahead and buy it. It's great. It doesn't slip off your desk and it actually comes rolled in a box, so you can actually just counter roll it a bit in order to make it flat again. And yeah, nothing crazy, but if you actually like this type of pad, sure, go ahead and buy it. Why not? But yet again, would I buy it for around 60 euros? I don't know. What I would really like to see from ZOWIE would be a faster pad. I could actually imagine ZOWIE doing a really good job at a proper speed pad, especially because their base is already pretty nice. So if they find a way to do a proper speed pad similar to the Raiden but without any static electricity issues, that would be pretty cool. Now, getting into the conclusion, who are ZOWIE products for? If you've been in the Counter-Strike scene for a while and you've always wanted to look like your favorite pro player, yeah, sure, go ahead and buy it, why not? If you actually like 60 gram mice or around 65 grams, and if you just want something that is built like a brick, functions with perfect wireless reception, and supports up to 4K Hz now, the DW series is really nice. I like these mice a lot. I do personally prefer lower weights, but I can definitely see a lot of people enjoying the shit out of these mice. But if you do have the money for ZOWIE mice and you see something that you think would suit you very, very well, and you do prefer this type of weight, I can highly recommend these mice. The only thing I don't like stock are the skates, and if you want to buy UWS skates that are 100% PTFE, I can definitely recommend them, and I'll put a link down in the description below for AliExpress because these are actually more affordable than you think. Some of these are all the way down to like $5 to $6, and it's a huge upgrade for your mouse. But yeah, here's the thing. There are other brands in the market that make mice that are almost as solid as ZOWIE mice, but at over 20 grams less. So if you're somebody who just prefers lower weight mice, or you just want to save some money because most of these clones are actually noticeably cheaper, because most of these brands actually are located in China, I can definitely recommend the Lamsu Inca if you want a CA13. The ATK U2 and the U2 Mini are also decent ZOWIE clones. It's just that the top shells on these mice is definitely a bit more on the thin side, and you can make it flex. It's not as super solid as a ZOWIE mouse, but then again, it weighs 20 grams less. So if that's something that you would like, definitely check these mice out. Just don't expect the same insane build quality that ZOWIE has. It's definitely also one of the reasons why they weigh that much more is just because they have a thicker shell. In terms of the new Vaxi E1 compared to the EC2, I personally cannot feel a difference when gripping these things. The only difference that I can see is that the E1 is actually a tiny bit shorter. It also looks a bit more hunched up and not as tall, but when gripping the thing, I can barely feel a difference. I would say that almost anyone out there that actually really enjoys the E1 or the EC2 would swap over to the other and barely notice a difference and play just as well. If you're looking for an affordable EC2 clone, I can definitely recommend the ER21 from ROM. Whilst I haven't tried it myself, I've heard very, very good things about them, and I actually do own a Leviathan V4 from ROM, and the build quality is insanely good. You get so much bang for a buck, so definitely check this one out if you're looking for something more affordable. As always, I can also highly recommend watching some reviews of this mouse. And even for the S2, there are also clones like the Fantech Helios 2S Pro or whatever it's called, which was a decent mouse and definitely a bit more affordable. But if you want a mouse with around 60 to 65 grams and the best build quality possible out there, I can still definitely recommend ZOWIE at the end of 2025. They make some super solid mice, and I really do love my FK2DW that I actually bought myself just because I wanted something that's still unique. We don't have any more super flat and very long mice in the market, but we're probably not gonna have to wait for too long until a brand like MCHOS, ATK, or even RAW-M comes around and clones this thing at around 40 grams, and then also probably sells it at a fraction of the price. That's about it for this video though. Definitely make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell right next to it if you're at all interested in these type of enthusiast reviews. At the end of this year, I'll also be making a top budget mice video, so if you're gaming on a budget, definitely make sure to stick around. Yet again, huge thanks to ZOWIE for sending some of these products out. Also a huge shout out to Mortex over at ZOWIE, and I hopefully see you guys pretty soon. Peace out.